17 years. That's how long I've been working on Japanese imports. Toyotas, Lexus, Honda, Subaru, specifically the ones that come off the boat before they are modified for the American market. And in those 17 years, I've watched the same thing happen over and over again. A perfectly engineered machine, designed to run for 300,000, 400,000, sometimes 500,000 miles, gets handed to an American owner with a manual that has been quietly, deliberately rewritten. Not the engineering, not the parts, just the instructions, the maintenance schedule, the service intervals, the operating recommendations. All of it softened, stretched, and simplified to match what American dealerships can charge for and what American consumers will actually do. I want to be clear about something before we go any further. I am not angry about this. I understand exactly why it happens. The incentive structure makes it inevitable. But understanding why it happens does not mean you have to fund it. And after what I saw in Japan in 2018, I stopped funding it entirely and started telling every owner I work with to do the same. Here is what happened. I was in Nagoya in the fall of 2018, visiting a longtime contact who runs an independent service center that works exclusively on high-mileage Toyota and Lexus vehicles. His specialty is cars over 300,000 kilometers. That's roughly 186,000 miles for those of us who think in American units. I walked into his shop, and the first car I saw on the lift was a 2004 Lexus LS430. I assumed it was there for something serious. An engine rebuild. Maybe. A transmission swap. Something major. I asked him what was wrong with it. He looked at me like I had said something strange. Nothing is wrong with it, he said. The owner is at 380,000 kilometers. He comes every 5,000 for oil, every 30,000 for transmission fluid, every 60,000 for coolant. Today is a coolant service. I pulled up what the American owner's manual recommends for that same car. Coolant at 100,000 miles, then every 50,000. Transmission fluid listed as a lifetime fill. Oil at 10,000 miles. He looked at those intervals and shook his head. At those intervals, he said, the car is being slowly destroyed. Not quickly, slowly. By the time the owner notices, the damage is already done. That conversation did not just change how I maintain cars. It changed how I explain cars to every owner who walks into my shop. Because the gap between what the American manual recommends and what Japanese engineers actually practice is not a small technical disagreement. It is a difference between a car that hits 400,000 miles and a car that needs a $6,000 engine replacement at 140,000. And by the time we reach the 7th item on this list, you are going to understand something about your fuel system that the dealership has a direct financial incentive to make sure you never figure out. Stay with me. Before we get into the specific items, you need to understand the underlying logic. Because once you see the structure clearly, every recommendation on this list stops feeling like a quirk and starts feeling like an obvious conclusion. Here is the honest explanation for why American maintenance schedules are what they are. American dealerships operate on a two-revenue model. Revenue Stream 1 is service. Revenue Stream 2 is repairs. Preventive maintenance, the kind that actually keeps components from failing, generates modest, recurring revenue from oil changes and fluid services. Repairs generate large, irregular, high-margin revenue from transmission replacements, engine rebuilds, and cooling system failures. The math is not complicated. A dealer who performs a $150 transmission fluid service every 30,000 miles earns $150. A dealer who replaces a transmission that failed because the fluid was never changed earns $4,500 to $6,000. There is no conspiracy here. There is just incentive. And the maintenance schedules distributed in American markets reflect those incentives as clearly as any financial document. Now here is a Japanese philosophy, stated as simply as I can state it. In America, we maintain cars based on convenience. The interval is set at the longest distance the average consumer will tolerate without losing trust in the brand, so that the car doesn't embarrass itself within the warranty period. After the warranty period, the dealership will prefer you to be back for repairs rather than maintenance. In Japan, they maintain cars based on preservation. The goal is not to keep the car running through the warranty period. The goal is to keep every mechanical component in near factory condition for as long as the owner wants to drive it. The service interval is not set at the edge of acceptable degradation. It is set at the point before degradation begins in any meaningful way. That is the entire difference. Everything else, every specific recommendation on this list, flows from that single distinction. Japanese engineers designed your Toyota or Lexus to last 500,000 miles. They tested it at 500,000 miles. They know exactly what it takes to get there. The maintenance schedule in your American Owner's Manual is not that schedule. It is a schedule designed around a different set of priorities, none of which are your engine's longevity. The schedule I am going to walk you through today is the one that Japanese engineers actually follow, not the one in the brochure they handed you at the dealership. Item 1. Engine oil interval, the foundation of everything. The first time I tell American Toyota owners that the Japanese change their engine oil every 5,000 kilometers, roughly 3,000 miles, the reaction is almost always the same. But my manual says 10,000 miles. The dealership said I could go to 10,000. Yes, they did say that. And here is what that interval is actually doing to your engine. The recommendation: 5,000 kilometers, approximately 3,000 miles, regardless of whether you are running conventional or full synthetic. If you are running full synthetic and your driving is primarily highway with minimal cold starts, you can extend this to 5,000 miles maximum. Not 7,500, not 10,000, 5,000. The mechanism. Engine oil performs three simultaneous functions that are easy to describe and almost never explained. It lubricates metal surfaces to prevent direct contact wear. It carries heat away from the combustion chamber and valve train. And it suspends combustion byproducts, carbon particles, fuel residue, metal shavings, and carries them into the oil filter before they can deposit on engine surfaces. That third function is the one the extended interval destroys. After approximately 3,000 to 5,000 miles, the oil's capacity to suspend those particles is exhausted. The detergent additives that prevent carbon and sludge from depositing on engine surfaces begin to break down chemically. At that point, the oil is still lubricating. It will keep lubricating until it turns to gel, but it has stopped cleaning. Every mile after that point, the particles it can no longer suspend are depositing on your valve train, your oil passages, and the walls of your engine. Quietly, invisibly, in a layer that gets thicker with every oil change you delay. What I have personally seen, I have torn down engines from Toyota Camrys maintained on the American 10,000-mile interval. At 90,000 miles, those engines show visible varnish deposits on the valve train components and measurable sludge accumulation on the oil pan baffle. I have torn down engines from the same generation Camry maintained on the 3,000 to 5,000-mile Japanese schedule. At 200,000 miles, those engines look nearly new inside. The metal surfaces are clean. The passages are clear. The difference is not subtle. It is not a matter of interpretation. It is visible to the naked eye the moment you pull the valve cover. The cost comparison: full synthetic oil change at an independent shop runs $60 to $80 every 5,000 miles. At that interval, you are spending approximately $160 to $200 per year on oil changes if you drive 12,000 miles annually. Following the 10,000-mile American schedule, you spend $80 to $100 per year. The difference is $80 to $100 per year. A single engine replacement in a Camry or Corolla runs $4,000 to $7,000 in parts and labor. You are risking a $5,500 repair to save $80 a year. That math should end the conversation. Why you will not hear this from your dealership: the labor time for an oil change is approximately 20 minutes. The margin on an oil change is thin. A dealership that performs oil changes every 5,000 miles is performing twice the oil changes per vehicle per year as one that stretches the interval to 10,000. The only way the 10,000-mile interval makes financial sense is if you're the one paying for the engine repair, not them. And you are. Item 2. Transmission fluid, the $5,000 mistake hiding in your owner's manual. Here is something that should alarm every Toyota and Lexus owner who has ever read their American service manual. Find the section on automatic transmission fluid. In most Toyota and Lexus vehicles sold in the American market since 2005, the manual lists the transmission fluid as a lifetime fill, meaning it never needs to be changed under normal driving conditions. In Japan, they change it every 30,000 kilometers. That is roughly 18,500 miles. Every 18,500 miles, the transmission fluid is drained and refilled. There is no such thing as a lifetime fill. There is fluid that lasts the lifetime of the transmission, meaning the transmission fails before the fluid does, and fluid maintained on an actual preservation schedule. Those are two completely different outcomes, and the manual has chosen a single phrase to describe both of them. The recommendation: drain and fill the automatic transmission fluid every 30,000 miles. Not a flush, a drain and fill. There is a critical distinction. A flush uses a machine to force new fluid through the transmission under pressure. On a high-mileage transmission with aged fluid and accumulated deposits, that pressure can dislodge debris and damage the valve body. A drain and fill simply removes the accessible fluid, typically 4 to 5 quarts of the total 8 to 10 quart capacity, and replaces it with fresh fluid. Performed every 30,000 miles, this keeps the fluid quality consistently high without the risk a flush creates on an older system. Fluid specification: Toyota genuine WS automatic transmission fluid only. Not Dexron. Not a universal ATF that claimed compatibility. Toyota WS fluid. This is not a brand preference. The Toyota WS formulation has specific friction modifier chemistry calibrated to the clutch pack material used in Toyota and Lexus transmissions. The wrong fluid will feel fine for 20,000 miles and then begin to cause abnormal clutch engagement and shift behavior. By the time you feel the symptoms, the clutch packs are already worn. The mechanism: automatic transmission fluid is not primarily a lubricant in the way engine oil is a lubricant. Its most critical function is hydraulic. The transmission control system uses pressurized fluid to engage and disengage clutch packs with precise timing. That timing determines when and how cleanly the transmission shifts. As the fluid ages, it loses viscosity and its friction modifier additives degrade. Clutch engagement becomes inconsistent. Shift timing drifts. Metal particles from normal clutch wear accumulate in the fluid and begin to act as an abrasive. The solenoids that control fluid flow begin to exhibit wear from those particles. None of this feels dramatic from the driver's seat. The transmission shifts. It keeps shifting. It shifts a little roughly, and you tell yourself that is normal for 120,000 miles. And then one day it slips, or it refuses to engage third gear, or you pull away from a stoplight and feel a shudder that was not there last month. At that point, the damage has been accumulating for years and a repair is now inevitable. What I have personally seen: I have serviced a 2007 Lexus IX 350 that the owner brought to me at 340,000 miles. The transmission shifted perfectly. Clean, precise, no hesitation, no shudder. The owner had changed the fluid every 25,000 miles from purchase, always with Toyota genuine WS fluid, always with a drain and fill. I pulled a fluid sample and compared it to a sample from a 2008 IX 350 at 110,000 miles that had never had the fluid change. Lifetime fill. The owner said, "The dealership told me it was fine." The 110,000-mile transmission fluid was dark, oxidized, and smelled of burnt friction material. 3 months after that comparison, the 108,000-mile transmission required a full rebuild. The 340,000-mile transmission did not. The cost comparison: Toyota genuine WS fluid runs approximately $10 to $12 per quart. A drain and fill requires 4 to 5 quarts. Total fluid cost is $50 to $60. With labor at an independent shop, the service runs $100 to $150. At 30,000-mile intervals, you are spending $400 to $600 over 120,000 miles. A transmission rebuild on a Lexus RX or Toyota Highlander runs $3,500 to $6,000. A remanufactured replacement transmission installed runs $4,500 to $7,500. You are spending $500 to prevent a $5,000 to $7,500 repair. That is the clearest financial decision on this entire list. Why you will not hear this from your dealership: lifetime fill is language that benefits exactly one party in this transaction, and it is not you. Item 3. Coolant replacement, the interval your manual buried. Before I get to the coolant, let me tell you something about Item 6 that will reframe the way you think about fuel economy for the rest of the time you own your car. What I am about to tell you about your fuel injectors directly contradicts something the dealership has probably told you, or more accurately, something they have carefully never mentioned. Stay with me. Now, coolant. The American Toyota manual recommends the first coolant change at 100,000 miles, then every 50,000 miles after that. In Japan, coolant is changed every 60,000 kilometers, approximately every 37,000 miles, starting from the first service interval. That is more than twice the frequency at the early stage and significantly more frequent throughout the vehicle's life. The recommendation: replace engine coolant every 2 years or 30,000 miles, whichever comes first. Use Toyota Super Long Life coolant, the pink coolant, diluted to a 50/50 ratio with distilled water. Never tap water. The mineral content in tap water introduces deposits into the cooling system. If you are in a region with hard water and your cooling system has been filled with tap water at any point, flush the system before refilling with the correct mixture. The mechanism: engine coolant does not just transfer heat. It also protects the aluminum components in your engine, the cylinder head, the water pump housing, the heater core, the radiator, from electrochemical corrosion. Fresh coolant contains corrosion inhibitors that coat aluminum surfaces and prevent them from reacting with the coolant itself. As those inhibitors deplete, the coolant becomes progressively more corrosive to the very components it is supposed to protect. Here is a specific failure mode that the long American interval enables. As coolant ages and its inhibitor package depletes, it becomes slightly acidic. Acidic coolant begins to pit aluminum surfaces, particularly the thin aluminum fins of the heater core and the aluminum casting of the water pump housing. At the same time, the depleted coolant no longer prevents a buildup of scale deposits from minerals in the water content. Those deposits reduce heat transfer efficiency, which means the engine runs slightly hotter than designed. Slightly hotter is still within the normal operating temperature gauge range. Your dashboard will not warn you. But slightly hotter, sustained over years, accelerates wear on head gaskets, thermostat housings, and rubber coolant hoses simultaneously. The water pump failure is the one that gets expensive fastest. A water pump on a Camry or Corolla runs $150 to $300 in parts. Labor, depending on the engine layout, runs $300 to $700. Total repair, $450 to $1,000. A head gasket failure, which acidic coolant can accelerate, starts at $1,500 and goes to $3,500 on a 4-cylinder, higher on a V6. The coolant service costs $80 to $120 at an independent shop. The math runs in one direction. What I have personally seen: 2006 Toyota Corollas, same production year, same engine. One maintained in the American long-interval pattern, coolant changed once at 100,000 miles, then the owner lost track. The other maintained on a 2-year replacement cycle with Toyota SLLC. At 180,000 miles, the long-interval car developed a pinhole leak in the heater core and a water pump with visible corrosion pitting on the impeller blades. The short-interval car at the same mileage had cooling system components that looked close to original condition. The heater core replacement alone on that car cost the owner $900 in labor because of the dashboard disassembly required. The cost comparison: coolant service at an independent shop, $80 to $120. Every 2 years on a 12,000 mile per year driving schedule, you are spending approximately $40 to $60 per year. Heater core replacement, $700 to $1,200 depending on vehicle. Water pump replacement, $450 to $1,000. Head gasket, $1,500 to $3,500. You are spending $50 a year to protect against $2,000 to $5,000 in possible failures. If you want the complete Japanese maintenance schedule I use for Toyota and Lexus vehicles, organized by mileage interval from 5,000 miles to 200,000 miles, with exact fluid specifications, Toyota part numbers, and independent shop versus dealer cost comparison for every service, I've put together a reference document that contains everything in one place. It is at the link in the description. It is a document I wish someone had handed me before I had to learn all of this the hard way. Item 4. Differential fluid. The service nobody mentions and everyone needs. I want you to do something right now. Pull up the maintenance schedule in your Toyota or Lexus owner's manual. Find the section for differential fluid. On most vehicles sold in the American market, you are going to find one of two things: either a very long interval with a note about severe service, or nothing at all, no mention of differential fluid service as a routine maintenance item. In Japan, the differential fluid on rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive Toyota and Lexus vehicles is changed every 40,000 kilometers. That is approximately 25,000 miles. The recommendation: change front and rear differential fluid every 25,000 miles on AWD vehicles. On RWD vehicles, change the rear differential fluid every 30,000 miles. Use a correct specification fluid for your specific drivetrain on Lexus GX and Land Cruiser applications. This means Toyota Genuine Differential Gear Oil LT75W85. On the RXAWD models, the rear differential takes a specific fluid that is not interchangeable with generic gear oil. Specification matters here more than almost anywhere else on this list. The mechanism: the differential is a component that allows your drive wheels to rotate at different speeds when cornering. It does this through a set of precision-ground spiral bevel gears operating under extremely high contact pressure, far higher contact pressure than any component in your transmission or engine. Differential fluid is formulated with extreme pressure additives specifically designed to prevent metal-to-metal contact under that load. As those EP additives deplete, the gear surfaces experience microwelding, literally microscopic metal transfer between gear teeth under high pressure, that progressively roughens the gear surface and accelerates wear.